All right, yeah, so thank you again for being with us this morning. My name is Jeff Langhelm. I'm the Public Works Director here at the City of Gig Harbor. We, as you know, have a project that is going to be starting again at the intersection of Harborview Drive and Stinson Avenue. We've had a few conversations with smaller groups who have questions, concerns, comments about this project restarting in March. And so we realized that, hey, there's probably more than just smaller groups that want to be hearing from us and asking questions and providing some recommendations. So we talked to the Chamber of Commerce and Downtown Waterfront Alliance and said, hey, let's have a bigger meeting. So that's the impetus of this meeting. You have with you from the city the staff who's working on it. That's Aaron Holst, he's the project engineer. And Trent Ward, he's the city engineer. He's responsible for capital projects. And we have the construction supervisor, who is the person out in the field, George Flanagan. He's you've probably seen his friendly face many times. He leads a lot of these projects in town and is the direct connection to the contractor. So we also have with us City Administrator Tony Piasecki, and we have Mayor Markley, who has been a driving force for having these conversations. So what I was going to do today is I want to start by giving just a quick background of the project, how we got to where we are, and then I'm going to be opening up for questions along the way, and I'm going to try and continue and then get to certain breaking points and then ask if there's any questions at that point. So if there's no questions at this point, I'm going to just go ahead and jump right in. Feel free to raise your hands if you haven't used Zoom. Most of you probably have, but there's if you're using it on your computer screen down at the bottom, there's usually a raise hand option. So feel free to raise your hand at one point, and if you have questions. All right, and just a reminder to please mute yourself so that we don't have background or hear things like phones. I think I can. There. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and start by sharing my screen. I'm going to give a quick overview. I'm going to project on the screen the landscape plan for this project. It's usually the last thing that goes in place, but it shows a good detail of what it will look like when it's all finished. And apologize for those of you who are not used to looking at engineered drawings. This might look a little busy to you, but this is the engineered landscape plan for this project. Essentially, you see Stinson Avenue is coming from the north side or from the south side into the north. Harborview curves around. There's the entrance to the Gig Harbor Boat Shop and the brick house. And what's now a three-way intersection with one leg, the Stinson Avenue leg being stop controlled, is going to be a roundabout. This is going to be a little larger roundabout than the roundabout that we recently installed at Rosedale Stinson. It also has some more gentle angles coming in and out. Because of the slopes, for all of you who know this intersection very well, there's a steep slope at this intersection. We have to do a significant amount of grading to make the roundabout not perfectly level, but pretty close to level. So there's a lot of grading that's going to occur. There's retaining walls that are going to be installed, and sight lines are going to be improved as you come up and through this intersection. And so it's going to take a lot of work. One thing you will notice is generally we are staying within the right-of-way, not fully, but generally we are. So we have what might seem like a large area to work with. When you put a large roundabout like this in, it takes up a lot of room. So we're going to be using every inch of our right-of-way to put in this roundabout. All right. Any questions on the general scope of the work here? Okay. All right, I'm going to leave this image up for a bit because I'm going to be talking a lot about the project itself, and I'm going to be switching images along the way. So this project was originally supposed to be under construction last year, starting in June, and then be over 5 months later at the end of October. But we had some unanticipated gravity sewer issues that the city identified in this intersection right before we went out to bid. That caused us to have to pause the design and back up, redesign the sewer work that we needed to do, add that into the contract, and then put the project out to bid. That additional delay pushed us out into awarding the contract and having the contractor come on board in August of 2021. So there was a few months delay right there. And we recognized that we weren't going to be able to work through the winter, of course. And so what we decided to do at that point was split the project into 2 phases. First phase was a utility relocation window, primarily for that sewer work. That sewer work, as you probably saw, cut right through the middle of the front of the park along Ed and Boat. That's where the paved path is now and where the concrete path was before. And then some massive excavations out in the middle of the roadway. So we were able to get through that sewer relocation and a water relocation at the same time last year. We started this work in right after Labor Day. We didn't want to impact anyone during summer. So our typical start window for out of the summer season is Labor Day. But we knew we couldn't get all this work completed because instead of having 5 months worth of work, we now had 7 months. So we started after Labor Day with the utility work, and we were able to get the utility work done a little early. We were done before Halloween. And that's when the site was temporarily closed up and left the way it was that you saw it all winter long and the way you see it today. So next, after we had that phase 1 work out of the way, we are now preparing to restart the construction project, and that's where we are today, and that's based on the flyers that we've previously handed out and the messaging we've got out on social media, and the signs that are up around the city to warn the traveling public about the upcoming project. So we've been working with the contractor through the winter to try and make sure everything's lined up. For a start date, we originally said March 1st. The contractor is looking at actually the day before on February 28th. So a little less than a week away. Contractor wants to get in there. They still have a 5-month time frame that they think they can complete this work in. It is weather dependent. So if we have a very wet spring, that will impact the construction project. It will delay it a little bit further. So once we started to get the word back out of this restart of the project and phase 2 beginning this spring, we did start to hear from a lot of people about how it's going to impact them and what we can do to minimize those impacts. We have heard some options. We have reviewed those internally. We've had 1 meeting already, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But before I go any further and start to talk about some more details, do we have any questions? Feel free to raise your hand. Either I can't see everybody. We have so many people, I can't see everybody in the window. So if you would please raise your hand using the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen. Okay, I don't see any hands raised, so I'm going to continue. Okay, so we've had a lot of questions. Why can't we do 2-way traffic, or why can't we do 2-way traffic on weekends? Long and short of that is the contractor, since we have such a massive grade change that is occurring down on this site, and the site is so tight, if we were to try and get 2-way traffic through this intersection, each time the contractor would get to the end of their workday, they would have to essentially rebuild the roadway and put a second lane back in. And then the next morning, they would have to just come right back and take that second lane out so that they would be able to start their work again. So the amount of delay it would cost the city as a whole, and would be at least a month, if not more, because of the added time it would take the contractor to every night build the roadway back up and then tear it down the next morning. That's not even talking about the costs. I'm not even going to talk about the costs because that's something that we can't even consider at this point. So at this point, you have seen, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to switch to what we provided previously. Okay, I'm going to zoom in here in just a second, but this is essentially what we've provided on social media and handouts for the project. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, so bear with me here. Hopefully you can see that a little better. So what we have is in order to keep traffic flowing and to be able to only have one lane of traffic through the construction project, we have elected to have a one-way only northbound. I'm going to call this northbound versus southbound. So Stinson Avenue is closed except for the local traffic. Local traffic meaning if you live along Stinson Avenue in that section, you can go along there. Or if you're going to, for example, the yacht club building at the bottom of the hill, you can go through the intersection, but you cannot go further past essentially the yacht club. That's the actual access to Harborview Drive will not be allowed. So this is what we proposed. This would then have anybody trying to go southbound on Harborview through this section would have to use the detour route. That's in orange. Now, originally we had shown that we were going to have this, what we call a hard closure at the intersection of Harborview and North Harborview. We did hear from a lot of the businesses in that area about how impactful that was in the fall of 2021. And so we looked at alternatives to try and minimize those impacts. So we now have changed this, what we call hard closure at Harborview, North Harborview, and we've moved it closer to Austin Park. So if you recall what it looks like in this section of roadway, in front of Austin Park, there is a two-way left turn lane that begins here. And so we have 2 lanes in each direction and a two-way left turn lane. So where that two-way left turn lane ends in front of Austin Park, we are essentially moving our hard closure south to that point. So you can still access, there's about 11 businesses in and around this area. And so what we're doing is we're pulling back the closure and we're moving it to Austin Park so that people can still access those businesses in both directions and not be turned away. But once you get to Austin Park, there's going to be a hard closure. There's going to be signs, barrels, so that only the one-way traffic coming from the south will be able to make it through. We moved this option forward for a number of reasons. First, I want to say that one of the criteria was that traffic volumes are heavier going northbound than they are southbound, not by much, but they are. So we said, well, it's better to continue to let the heavier volume of traffic go through one way instead of switching this detour route and letting the lighter volume of traffic go through. We also looked at this and said, okay, well, what causes the worst traffic in Gig Harbor? Well, it's when Highway 16 gets backed up. And more often than not, it's what's legally termed a westbound Highway 16 issue. But it's essentially when people are traveling north along Highway 16, whenever there's an issue, an accident, congestion on the highway, there's often a lot of cut-through traffic. People cut through Gig Harbor, they go down Stinson and try and get along this section of Harborview Drive. If we were to switch the detour, we saw that would be an issue. And so we looked at this and we said, well, the best direction for one-way traffic is northbound because of not only traffic volumes, but also in case of an issue along Highway 16. But we have been asked about what it would look like if we did a southbound detour. So we drew up a what the detour route could look like if we did a detour and had southbound traffic going through the work site instead of northbound traffic, and then switch the detour route around. So I'm going to show that image next. Okay, here's an overview of the map. I'll zoom in again, but essentially it's the same work area. It's almost the exact same detour route, only reversed. So let me zoom in a little more. Hopefully you can see that okay. So by switching the detour, it's not going to have much of an impact on construction, if any. But I'll tell you what we have seen when we looked at this, what the issues could be. When we do this switch in the one-way direction, we now have all the businesses from essentially Rosedale, Harborview being stopped, and all traffic northbound is detoured then up Rosedale Street. So there's about 30 or more businesses along this section of Harborview that would have a significant reduction in traffic going in front of them. And then we also have a lot of consideration for all of the residents in and around Novak, Ross, and Dordich. There would be probably a significant amount of cut-through traffic in here because of people trying to might pass the detour, because it is local access in here. We would still have local access here. But it would be similar to what we've proposed at the other side with the other direction of the detour. We would have a soft closure at Rosedale, Harborview, and then a hard closure at Novak and Harborview. And so we are concerned that a lot of people would think that they could still get through here, and they would just be bypassing along these local roadways and cutting through the neighborhoods. And if you have have had construction traffic ran through your neighborhood, you know that people are often upset, in a hurry, driving fast, not happy. So it's never a good way to approach a neighborhood to say, hey, can we reroute construction traffic through your neighborhood? We have looked at options to, if we were to do this, to put a uniformed police officer at this intersection for the duration of the construction during midweek, Monday through Friday, from essentially like a 7:30 to 6 o'clock time frame. While we don't think that there's going to be a whole lot of benefit if we were to do that, we could do that. It would cost the city about, for that 5-month period, about $150,000 to have a uniformed police officer there for that duration. And so looking at all of the changes that would occur, we recognize that either way we have a one-way traffic flow with a detour, that it's going to impact people. Staff still recommends that we continue to proceed with the one-way northbound and the detour for southbound. Now, we don't get to be the final decision makers on that. That's just our recommendation. If the businesses and the city council have enough support to have another discussion about this and would like city council to have a change in this, then I think that we need to have another discussion, possibly at an upcoming study session or council meeting, to decide if we're going to really make such a drastic change in the traffic control plan. It will probably, if we change this, it will probably delay the construction because we need to back up and have a conversation with the contractor before they start. But they already have the momentum to start on Monday. So there's going to be a whole lot of unknowns that will be starting the conversation if that's the direction we're going. So I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see everybody. Wondering if there's any questions at this point, comments, concerns, questions about either detour plan that's proposed. Yes, Mr. Ryder. You're muted, sir.
Not muted. Hi, I'm Paul Ryder. I live in Edgewater, which in the first scheme is in that zone that has would have my question really is between that hard stop is and whether local traffic that's going into Murphy's Landing and Edgewater would be permitted. It wasn't clear from the discussion today and from the picture.
It would not be permitted to have two-way traffic in front of in the northbound one-way option. It would not be permitting traffic to go two-way to access Murphy's Landing and Edgewater because we don't have the amount of travel lane width to safely allow traffic that is still trying to get through to do a U-turn.
Okay, well, okay, let me ask then the narrow question, which is, given that you decided to move the hard stop back to Austin Park, the entrance to Murphy's is right there, and that could be put on one side of that driveway, and Murphy's and Edgewater connect. Do you know that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so that's still what you just said is still true. That would basically, so everybody who lives or occupies boats at Murphy's would have their access. I'm not complaining. I'm just clarifying, right? So your access to Gig Harbor would always be really essentially to go up to 16 or go around and to come back into Gig Harbor on the top, correct? For 6 months or for 4 months.
5 months, yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear what.
Sure. Let me share my screen real quick, and I'm going to look closely at that section of Harborview Drive in front of Austin Park so we can see what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so originally, let me zoom out once real quick. Originally, we had a hard road closure here at Harborview, North Harborview. We've moved that hard road closure to here. It's still going to say local access only. It's still going to say road closed in 300 feet or something. The reason that we selected this location in front of Austin to have the hard closure is if anybody does come down here and still thinks that they can get down into this section, is that we have this two-way left turn lane. This two-way left turn lane peters out and it disappears right about here.
I understand. You see where the driveway is?
Yes.
Just there. I guess I'd ask you guys to consider moving that hard stop just past that driveway. I understand about the width of the road there, okay?
Yeah.
But that allows everybody who is it was either at Murphy's or at Edgewater, right, to have access to their, with where we live, for 6 months. And it wouldn't, I would just ask you to think about that possibility, right?
Okay, we'll reassess the dimensions.
Okay.
Because here on this section, you can see the curb to curb width. It's not just two travel lanes and
I know there's a center lane. I got it. Yeah.
It's parking on either side that allows more of a turning radius.
Understood.
Here, just curb to curb is, but
I got it.
We'll do those dimensions. We'll check those.
Thank you for at least consideration of that. Okay. Because that's quite a few people and cars and stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Any other questions? Yes, Kirk.
That's Kirk Grimmer. Hey, regarding the local access to Stinson, many businesses like to reserve, and organizations like to reserve the yacht club for their meetings. Will that still be able to continue during the shutdown period?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the only way to access the yacht club will be from the Rosedale Stinson intersection, but you'll have full access from the Rosedale Stinson intersection.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions at this point? Okay, so we continue to always be on the lookout for other ways to improve traffic control. Things are always changing. If you ever have been in a construction project that has traffic control, things change. And so what we're doing right now is we're trying to find a good way to start the project and see how we can fine tune it as we proceed. And so open to more suggestions. It's easy for us to look at things on paper, have conversations, and run through scenarios. So now is the time definitely to do that. I also want to talk about what we heard at our February 11th meeting, which it wasn't focused just on traffic control, but we did hear that there were weeks where some businesses had no waste pickup. And so I just want to say, we, the city staff, Aaron, George, Trent, myself, really we have these conversations with the delivery folks, not all, private delivery folks, but the U.S. Postal Service, all the public agencies, the EMS, the fire, the waste collectors, and we talked with them as we proceed. Anytime we do these types of road closures, to make sure that they're very aware of how they can access all of their customers. And so it sounds like from our February 11th meeting that some of the customers were not receiving waste pickup during the first few weeks of construction last fall. And that's concerning to us because we do have those conversations with the waste delivery folks. If at any time you don't have a service that you need because of the service is saying, well, there's construction, we don't know how to get to you. Please don't just tell them that they need to call the city, but please call the city. Call Aaron, call George, call me. I'll give you phone numbers in just a minute. But we can help you reach out to those delivery folks and let them know how they can access or how we can change our traffic control plan to better allow them to access your business. So don't think that we're not here to help. We might not have direct input or line of conversation with that business, but we can help and we can change if necessary. So please let us know immediately after you start to hear those things. Okay. I'm going to give phone numbers, and I should have had a screen up. Well, actually, let me pause for just a second. I'm going to go to our city website. I'm going to show that on the website, and you can see what it looks like, because we're going to continue to work with Laura Pettit, Communications Director, on routine updates of this project, and we're going to keep our website updated also. So I'm going to get there real quick. So it's under, if you go to our website, it's under departments, under Public Works. There's an active projects list. It's also under the news flash on the front page. So let's see here. Okay, so this is our Public Works active projects. The first one there is Harborview Stinson. Talks about what we've talked about a little bit. There's the detour map, the northbound one-way, and then primary contacts, George Flanagan, Aaron Holst, and then my contact is also, it's just directly under Public Works, but my phone number is 253-853-7630. And if you just Google my name and City of Gig Harbor, you'll see my email address too. So this is here. Again, this is both on the news flash page or the front page under news flashes and then under active projects. Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Reader, did you still have a question? Your hand's still up. Or do you have another question? Oh, you're muted still.
Yes, I do have a question. So in terms of what I would view as my question, and there'll be versions of my question for people who live in and around the obviously, right, the immediate site. Who's the point person to call? Is it you, Jeff?
I won't have the most up-to-date information. The person to call that has the most up-to-date information would be George Flanagan. He's the one that's in constant contact with the contractor.
Okay,
Aaron Holst is the project engineer, project manager. He is the one who can, who, if George is not available, or if, or for whatever reason, if you think that it's more, if it's not an urgent issue and it's just more of a conversation about the project as a whole, talk to Aaron.
well, yeah, I guess I'm not, there's a lot of people on this call. I don't mean to dominate just with one area, but there are quite a few people who live here, and there's a whole bunch of people who live on the boats, right? So it's not an insignificant little cluster of people.
No.
And we want to be sure that the businesses have access, but access to people who live along this road is important too, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to remind you guys that Murphy's and the adjacent condominium have have a chain between them, but that can be lowered. All right. So if I just come back to the original question I asked, if you put the stop point down just past Austin, and I understand the road width problem, the benefit there could also be that, as people come, they're that's a narrow spot right at the base of the hill there, as you know, right? After you go through the roundabout.
Yes.
So having people, our people who live in our community being able to enter down at the end of Murphy's, okay, and would be also beneficial to the project, I would think, right? Because the road's a little wider and it's a little flatter during that point. So I'm just wondering, and maybe if it's George is the person, I don't know that anybody's come and talked to the management here, but I'm just wondering what I do on your behalf, right? To kind of to do a little bit more micro coordination before this all happens.
Well, let me say this. We do have a weekly construction meeting now with the contractor that's happening very soon. And so we can talk about this, about that hard closure location and the benefit of providing access in the southbound direction for Murphy's Landing and the condos, because they could enter at Murphy's Landing, and the amount of traffic it could take up or reduce through the construction zone by having that access.
Correct.
So,
yeah, that would be the logic. Okay.
So I'll say that between George, Trent, and Aaron and myself, that we will take a look at that, have a conversation with the contractor, and see what options we might have from that.
Okay. If you guys need to, do you have a contact person here? Or
George, George, do you have a contact at the Edgewater condo?
Edgewater.
No, I do not.
Okay,
well, you can with Bruce Rogers with the marina, Murphy's Landing. But
yeah, well, that's good. But we need to talk to this side too. But if that's convenient for you, if not, you can get in touch with me. I could work for the association here. How do you want to do that? Number.
I would suggest, Mr. Reader, would you mind after this meeting calling George to give him contact info?
Absolutely no problem. What's your number, George, again?
Yeah, it's 253.
Yeah.
853 7695.
Let me just repeat that to you. 253-853-7695. Maybe we could talk, or if you want, you could stay on at the very end of this.
Well, I'm going to have to close the meeting since that's
okay.
But yeah, maybe just a phone call would be great.
Sure. Okay, I'll give you a call. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a question from Mr. Mordew. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes, thank you. Michael Mordew is my name. So first of all, I very much appreciate the fact that we're building roundabouts here. I know there's a lot of dissension. Some people don't like roundabouts. I do think in the long run, we're all going to enjoy them and feel that the traffic flow is much better. But I do have two questions. The first is I was quite appalled when I read that it was going to take 5 months for this roundabout to be constructed. Are the contractors working weekends, or is this just a 5-day-a-week project?
At this point, the contractor is starting by working 5 days a week. I'm sure that will change as we get into more hours and better weather.
Did you look at them working a 7-day-a-week contract, and did you decide it was just too expensive? And how many weeks would it have cut off the total project if it had been planned as 7 days a week in the first place?
Well, we have looked at that as an option. It's not necessarily about how much more it's going to cost us. It's about how much more disruption it causes others. And so we have to find a balancing act, because there is still a residential area that we work in, and to have construction 7 days a week for 4 months at a time can be very disruptive, and even outside of construction hours. So construction hours here in the city of Gig Harbor are 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. So we do have to be careful of that, but it's something where we continue to have those conversations with the contractor. I'm sure that you'll be seeing the contractor work other days and longer hours as we get through the construction project.
Okay, thank you for that answer. The second issue I'd like to raise is that we all know that Harborview Drive itself, particularly between Millville's Pizza and the distillery there, Heritage Distillery, it's extremely rutted and potholes all over the place, and it's disintegrating quite rapidly. Would this be an appropriate time to have a project to resurface that whole area, or at least fill in the potholes in that area? Since
yeah, we've been. I'm sorry, I cut you off, Mr. Modu.
Well, I was just saying that I think the traffic volume will be reduced because of this project. So, and it's only going to be one way. So, would this be a good time to clean up that area?
Yes, it would. We've already been having conversations about that with our public works superintendent and the city engineer about how much that roadway, at least one lane, the one lane that we didn't pave a few years ago, has disintegrated. And so we're putting together a plan to do that. I'm not sure if that'll happen as a full overlay of that lane, or if it'll just be some patching to get us through until we are able to do a full overlay. But it will be addressed this year.
Well, I appreciate you addressing it. It certainly needs some attention, no doubt about that. Thank you for your answers.
Yeah, you bet. Heidi.
Hi, good morning. Are there going to be flaggers or anything for the northbound traffic if trucks are coming in and going out? And if so, do you have kind of a traffic model on what that backup might look like on Harborview?
We do have traffic control personnel, flaggers, that will be in the lane of Harborview Drive whenever they need to maneuver equipment, trucks through the construction zone. We don't have a model of what that would look like, because it all depends on what the contractor needs to do. If it's just to get a truck in and out of the lane, that's quick. If they are maneuvering in a heavy piece of equipment that takes up a lot of road that they need to actually block the road to unload, then it's going to have an impact. They don't have a whole lot of those. They're very aware of traffic patterns. They don't try and deliver large pieces of equipment, materials during the worst part of the day, but in terms of traffic flow. But it's something that George, and in fact, all city employees monitor pretty closely. People are always checking in. We do have we do have people that intentionally in their off hours drive through the intersection just to see how bad it is. And I know that during my lunch hour, I sometimes drive right through the middle of construction projects, so I can have in my personal vehicle, so I can see what's going on. Contractor doesn't know who I am, so I get treated just like everybody else. And so if there's issue, that's the time for me or anyone else to report it back and say that there's issues going on. But as far as modeling it, no, we don't have traffic models, but we're going to be paying close attention to it.
Thank you.
Yep. Mr. Reader, did you have another question?
No.
Okay, perfect. Mary Damaris.
I have 2 questions. First of all, can you send me the link to the recording, and I'll make sure that I distribute it to our downtown businesses?
I will. I don't know how to do that, but I'll talk with Mo right after this and we'll find out. I hope I recorded it correctly. It says it's recording, and which Mo said recorded to the cloud. So I'll
Okay.
try and, yeah, I'll send it to both you, Mary, and Miriam, and I'll work with Josh Decker, so.
Okay. Secondly, I know in our previous meeting, we talked a little bit about some relaxing of regulations, perhaps around signage for our downtown businesses. Can you cover what we might be able to do there so we can continue to get people into our businesses?
Yeah, I'm going to be working with Community Development Department to look at their temporary sign program and see what we can do to allow additional signs to remind folks in and around the detour zone, the one-way zone, that businesses are still open. So I hope to have that conversation and get either between Katrina and I word out to, well, again, we'll reach out to you, Mary, and Miriam to let everybody know what the plan is and go from there. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so again, traffic control plans are flexible. We always look to improve them. There will be, the contractor should be, unless weather's crazy, we should be a contractor in place and mobilizing their equipment back in on Monday, the 28th. You have the contact for anybody here at the city to be able to reach out for any reason if there's issues, questions about this project. So we do appreciate your patience. We do realize there's an impact. We are trying to get through this as fast as possible. We continue to push the contractor as fast as possible so that we can be in and out as soon as we can. So if there's nothing else, I appreciate everybody's time, and we will, I'll stop the recording here and we'll have that available soon. Thank you.